A little bit of information, no more than what we're going to have.
Okay, you've got Lasky and Weller from
Right, yeah.
golf courses.
Yeah. There wasn't anybody else there at the
Okay.
desk, so.
I think I ask this every time, but we need 4, correct?
I think you need 5 because you've got an 8-member board, even though you're
Okay.
missing a body until Monday.
Okay.
Is it missing body habeas corpus? Is that?
They're downstairs, I think.
I was gonna say the morgue is over.
We're wandering around the building.
So I don't know if you want to start with just 4.
I think we have to vote on anything outside of the minutes.
I don't think so. We don't have minutes.
So we can just receive and file those.
Uh-huh. Yeah, receive and file the recording.
Okay. Well, it's 5 minutes past. Let's go ahead and get started. Can everybody hear me okay? Cam, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you all just fine. Thank you.
We will go ahead and call this meeting to order.
Niall did email me that he's not able to attend.
Okay. Thank you. Announcements. The RFP. I don't know what else there is to share much other than what's written down. Pre-bid meeting was conducted on July 29th. The bids closed Friday, August 13th. I guess we can share that there were 3 potential bidders that showed up to that pre-bid. And we are expecting 5 or 6. Is that fair to say? I know there is a tour scheduled. I'm not sure the exact date.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
They're
Tour tomorrow. Is it August 6th? Yeah, August 6th tomorrow. So August is flying by already. What else, guys?
Yep, bids are due back August 13th.
August 13th. Yep. And then we will select a appointee to the selection committee from the park board and 1 from the golf advisory committee. We will take interviews after that. So anything else on that?
I don't think so.
Any questions from you guys?
No.
My guess is they'll probably interview all 3, or, you know, instead of do a short list meeting. So
Sure.
once you guys have,
Depends on whether we get 3 or 5.
yeah,
We can interview.
Depends on how good they are.
yeah.
Depends on how good they are. Perfect. Did we have any public comment?
No.
When I have a quick question, Cam, when we open it up and they do input their information, we'll have a chance to all review each one, right? Before the interviews. They'll submit. They'll have to submit.
The selection committee would then take a look at each proposal, I believe. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So if we get a number of them, the process in the past has been to review them and shortlist them down to 3 or 4. If we only have 3 or 4 companies applying, then we sometimes just interview all of them.
Okay, thank you. I just wasn't aware of what the process was. Appreciate it.
Any other questions on the RFP? Okay. No public comment. No minutes to approve. However, there is a recording on YouTube. So if you'd like to watch that, get to that link right there in the minutes or the agenda. Item 2, new items for consideration to a 2022-2023 proposed operating budget.
Thank
not
you.
Elizabeth.
That's right.
Mr. Manning.
Elizabeth is busy preparing for another meeting, so she asked me to attend. I'm Mark Manning. I'm with the Department of Finance. Good to see everyone again. I'm going to give you the accelerated version of this because I don't want to bore you with a lot of details. But if she pulls up my PowerPoint here, I'll just kind of give you an overview of where we're at on the budget process, because we are right in the middle of it, right? It's literally tonight.
Is that it? Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so go to the next slide. You got a view slide.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Slideshow, something like that.
There. Oh, no, that's not it. Sorry.
There.
There it is.
Okay, so we'll talk about how we developed our budget this year briefly, and then I'll give you an overview of the budget and the CIP, and then we'll talk about the calendar, and then at the end I'll kind of tailor a few comments specifically for the golf system, which is probably more interesting to you than anything I would guess. So go ahead and go to the next slide. There you go. So this is our engagement process. We started about April 8th. We had a preliminary budget outlook where we treated with City Council and kind of gave them some preliminary ideas. At that point, we were pretty pessimistic. Remember, timeline-wise, that was before the federal government came out with the ARPA program. And we kind of had an idea something might be coming, but we weren't sure what the format of that would be. So we were mildly concerned about our financial situation on April 8th, is probably the best way to put it. ARPA came out, we evaluated that. We had another retreat on May 25th, and we presented a variety of potential options for the City Council to consider on things they may want to do if ARPA funding materialized and if we could use it on things like that. That in fact happened, and I'll go over what we added here in a little bit. Then on June 1st, we had another meeting again with the governing body, and they provided us further direction on things they were interested in. Then we go to the next slide, and we go to our district advisory board meetings in June and kind of present to them information similar to what I'm providing you tonight, although a little bit more preliminary because we weren't finished. We had our social media town hall on June 22nd. We focused that more on 4 initiatives that we'd like to use ARPA funding for. I'll go over those in a second. And then finally, our big engagement is tonight, here in about 2 hours or so, 2.5 hours. We will have an evening meeting, so anyone interested in commenting on the budget can come and not have to miss time from work or anything. So that's our engagement strategy. Of course, I'll point out that all the books are available on the website, wichita.gov. There's 2 volumes. And also our CIP is available at wichita.gov. You can also access them hard copies if you choose to at the public library branch locations. So here's where we're at on April 8th. That top line, you can see we were in decent shape in the first 2 years, and that's due to a variety of reasons. But systemically, we have expenditures that grow faster than revenues, and that's been our situation for quite a few years. So we were really concerned about our future on April 8th. Then fast forward to May 25th. Again, we went out on a 4-year forecast, and this is before ARPA, by the way. We thought we would be okay for a couple of years, but systemically we were not sustainable. We knew that we would have challenges in the out years. That's due to a lot of our revenues have rebounded from COVID, which is great. Interest earnings is where we are taking a huge hit. And if you have a savings account or any investments at all, I'm sure you can relate. Give you a little perspective. We earned about $10 million for the city of Wichita in 2020. We'll be lucky to earn $4 million this year. I think we'll be lucky to earn $1 million next year. So we're going to basically lose $9 million a year in interest earnings over the course of this period. That, among everything else, is probably our biggest weakness. Okay, next slide. Property tax revenues are actually doing fairly well. Sales tax is incredibly strong, believe it or not. Now, we don't know how much of that's due to the stimulus and all the payments that the federal government is doing on fiscal policy, but we're doing pretty well there. If we have a weakness right now in addition to interest earnings, it is transient guest tax and tourism related revenues. Those are rebounding, but they're still weak. So the final straw was we got ARPA funding and eligibility clarified, and that allowed us to put the budget together. Okay, next slide. So everything we do, just a reminder, everything we do is based on our mission. And our mission is to do 4 things: keep you safe, grow our economy, maintain and build a dependable infrastructure, and provide conditions for living well. Everything we do is driven by that. So we looked at ARPA funding. we're gonna get about $73 million in ARPA funding. 73 million, that's a lot relative to our budget. Our budget's 225 million, right? So there's some restrictions on how we can spend that, but we met with the council and tried to figure out how are we gonna spend $73 million over the next 4 years. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use it to fill positions, which we've kind of started to do it, already doing. That's good news for a lot of operating departments. We're also gonna use it to fund a lot of CIP projects. We're gonna use it to fill some overall holes in the general fund in the out years that I showed you earlier. And then finally, we've got 20 million reserved for what we call community initiatives. Take the next slide. Here's a little table. It looks like it again. So we'll spend about $14 million filling positions. Again, here at the city, anytime we're tight, we typically slow down on hiring. That's very detrimental, primarily to operating departments, which I'm sure David could spend hours telling you about, and he would be 100% correct. So we're going to use a lot of the ARPA money to allow us to fill positions, which means we can increase service levels. Really good thing. We identified a couple of initiatives council was really excited about, so we had those. We're going to do a violence interrupter program, which is basically designed to try to interrupt the cycle of violence on more of a preventative basis. That's about $500,000. We've got about $1 million in for enhanced fire responses. We'll do a study. We'll relocate our stations probably strategically, and we'll have $1 million in case we need to add any staffing or anything. And then we have about $23 million for CIP projects. That's primarily fire stations and police stations and libraries. But that basically frees up other CIP money for other purposes, which is a good thing, and which frankly is going to benefit the park department considerably. And then we have the $20 million. Again, that's kind of that's the soft number. We can spend that for a variety of areas to negate the negative economic impact of COVID. That's relatively broad. There's some guidelines. So the question is, how do we spend that? Go to the next slide. So there's 4 broad areas that, I'm sorry, I thought the next slide was it. I guess I don't have them. There's 4 broad areas that we're proposing, and that's what we're seeking a lot of input on. Those are job training, that's smart manufacturing, things of that nature. We want to spend money on kind of, not a pilot program, but on initiatives where we can try to change our structure of our economy so that we're better positioned for the future. Again, nothing is firm there. We basically have 4 years to figure it out and how we're going to spend that, but we want to target those dollars to areas that the community believes are important for us to be sustainable in the future. So that 20 million, again, we'll spend over the next couple, 3 years, and we haven't decided exactly how to spend that, but we will. Okay, so next slide, super high level overview. Mill levy will stay the same, 32 mills. Our reserves are pretty good. Our budget will be balanced. Here's the standard pie chart that I'm obligated to show you every time. Property taxes is about 1/3 of our revenue stream. Sales tax is a pretty substantial portion. Franchise fees. Go to the next slide. Takeaway on this slide is salaries and benefits is 75% of our budget. So anytime we have to cut the budget, mathematically, 75% of it's people. That's just the cold hard fact of how we operate. It's not good, but that's, I mentioned earlier, we hold positions when we're tight. This is why 75% of our budget is people. Go to the next slide. I'm going to shift to the CIP, the Capital Improvement Plan, real quick. Again, we align that to our mission. Everything we do is aligned to our mission. We align it to pass policy decisions by the City Council, primarily on rates for water and sewer. And we design it to be fiscally sustainable, which means we want to control our debt. Okay, next slide. A couple pie charts on it. Takeaway here is about 1/3 of our CIP is funded by water and sewer utility. About another 1/3 is funded by property tax and sales tax. And then another 1/3 is funded by everything else, federal funds, airport revenue, state funds, stormwater funds, things of that nature. So about 1/3 is funded by property and sales tax is the main important point. Okay, next slide. So if 1/3 is funded from water, sewer, utility revenues, then 1/3 of our expenditures are going to be for our water, sewer, and utility. Another 1/3 is for streets and special assessments, and then everything else, public safety, park, public facilities, freeways, that's another 1/3. Again, that's a super high level way to look at the CIP, but just to break it into thirds is kind of an easy way to look at least for me. So what are some of the highlights? I'll finish up with highlights, big picture things that are included in this budget. Again, we like to keep everything on a high level. There is a proposal, which you may be aware of, to combine cultural arts with the Park and Recreation Department. We believe that'll streamline a lot of things. It'll streamline the marketing of those programs, the registration. We think it'll streamline this delivery of those programs. And this is a predecessor, a step that could precede a potential shared service merger with Sedgwick County as well. That's not definite, but this will set up a structure so that if that option presents itself in the future, we're prepared for it. But we believe there's a lot of advantages to doing this, so the budget includes that strategy. Let's see, go to the next slide, I guess. Here's good news for the park department. I mentioned we restored some services that we had to cut during the pandemic. We were able to restore these with ARPA funding. Well, a couple of those were in park. We restricted our contract in mowing, I think primarily on right-of-ways a little bit, and we reduced our tree trimming and tree purchases last year. Well, good news is we can restore all those using ARPA funding. We also added some equipment for forestry in 2021, and we have a program where we're going to do a pilot for trash collection in the parks. Park had presented some options to add another Panker truck. I don't think we're prepared to go that far, but we are going to see about adding some resources for, I think, contracted trash pickup so we can keep our parks cleaner. Okay, next slide. Okay, let's go to what we probably are most interested in, and that's golf. So we'll present the quarterly report on August 17th. The good news is you guys are going to get a super short preview of that here, a very early preview, an exclusive early preview of it. Trying to build the anticipation here, not succeeding. But our proposed budget is based on the current model. That is, we have expenditure and staffing authority for our current model. Having said that, the budget makes it very clear that we expect to take a close look at outsourcing, and if it's appropriate to do so, we will recommend that, like Eddie mentioned earlier. Again, maybe it'll occur, maybe it won't. We'll make the best empirical decision for the system, and we have flexibility in the budget to go either way, but we believe, at a staff level at least, that outsourcing is probably going to be advantageous depending on what the proposals are. Next slide, we're getting close to the end. Again, here's going forward our schedule. The manager actually presented the budget on July 20th. Tonight's our evening meeting. We'll have another meeting on August 17th. And then August 24th is when the council ultimately will decide what they want to do, and they will provide staff direction. My last comments here briefly, I'll give you a little update on what we will present in a week or so at the quarterly report. And the really good news for golf is performing exceptionally well this year. Now, to be honest, I don't know if that's due to weather. I don't know if that's due to luck. I don't know if that's due to good management. But I will tell you that we are performing, the golf system is performing very well through the first two quarters. Now, that's easy to say compared to last year because we all know what happened in the first quarter and second quarter last year. It was terrible. So it would not be hard to exceed results from last year. But having said that, again, the system is doing very well through the first 6 months. If I had to tell you one thing I would be personally concerned about if I was in your shoes, and that's the same thing we talked about with when we visit with Kemper, I don't know that you're maximizing the revenue per round that you should, which means I don't know that you're selling enough concessions and carts. But having said that, the results are definitely very good. We're in the black, which is good. We need to make hay when the sun's shining, and the sun's shining for golf in April, May, and June, and you are making hay in April, May, and June, which is great. The last comment I'll give you is the subscription model is apparently working exactly as we intended, because if you look at your loss in January, February, and March, when it's too cold to make hay, to use my analogy, we typically lose a lot of money in those first 3 months. We know that. The subscription model was intended to smooth the revenue so we wouldn't lose as much money in those 3 months. That's exactly what's happened. Now, maybe it's due to the subscription model, maybe not, but all I'm telling you is factually, I can tell you that has happened. The first quarter is not nearly as bad as it has been, over time. I think we lost $60,000, $70,000 in the first quarter. Ordinarily, we lose $250,000. So we're in good shape right now. Could do better personally by selling more concessions and carts, my personal opinion. But it is true and fair to say that the golf system is in a good position through the second quarter. Rounds are up too, by the way. I'm sure Emma will tell you that. I hope that was brief enough. Sorry, I tried to rush through it as quickly as I could. Be happy to answer any questions specific to the entire budget or golf or park or whatever. Yes, sir, Richard.
as far as the overview on where some of the funds that they're looking for, anything for transit or the lake up north of town, are they anywhere on anybody's radar?
Yeah, transit has gotten a lot of federal funding, so we don't have any additional city funding for transit, but that's primarily because they have a lot of federal funding. In fact, I think that they're still trying to figure out how to spend all the federal funding.
Okay.
So that's a good position for them to be in. The second part, the north, which
There's the lake, the thing that's on the wall, and the other.
Crystal Prairie
oh,
Park
Crystal
Lake.
Prairie, Crystal Prairie Park Lake, yes. Crystal Prairie Park Lake is currently not in the capital improvement plan. That may be something that we receive feedback on, but I can tell you factually right now, it is not in the capital improvement program.
As far as the concessions, our model right now is that the pros are not allowed to sell what they think will sell. Everything is done in a commune approach where everybody has to do exactly the same thing. I know I just bought McDonald's a popcorn maker just to see whether or not it would work. We're not reaching out. We're not doing anything. If there's a real, it's lack of imagination to allow us to go out and try to sell what it is that people want. And I can tell you that for like McDonald's, he put in during the winter, because of lack of staff, they moved everything over to concession. 3 months ago, he requested it be moved back because we're getting a lot more play, and still hasn't heard back. So what you have is you have the lines of the people who are trying to pay their fees and the people who are trying to buy concessions, and the lines sometimes are 3 or 4 deep, and that hurts the turn. It's nuts that we can't run our system under a basis that makes sense. I mean, this is just business, and there's no reason not to be able to move it back that I know of. But and I can tell you stuff like that with every single course. It is just not at this point being managed very advantageously. And I'm all with you. I think the whole idea of the prescription method when we came up with it was get the people in and take their money. And as much as possible. And even another example on at McDonald's, you finished number 9 way away from the concession area. Look at that and Teradyne, flip their 9s. Is that advantageous? Because you'd be finishing right there. If not, can you have a system where you could have a call ahead? And there's sandwich services that you can get that will pick up what you don't sell. And we're not looking at anything. I mean, as I said, it's just a few stock items, and if you don't want cookies or potato chips, you're just out of luck. And
Yeah,
that's my problem.
I agree with where you're coming from. To Teradyne's point, they flipped the 9s because of drainage issues. They'll flip it again here in the fall. But that's not necessarily for the concessions or the restaurant up there. If somebody's hungry, I don't know about you, Michael, or you, Richard, but when I'm playing golf, I like to grab a hot dog or a burger at the turn. And I think they do have a call ahead option. It's maybe on hole 7 where it says call this number if you're hungry. We'll get something started for you. But I could be wrong on that. It could be some park or, I would imagine they have it at all 4 of our golf courses right now.
If it's there, it's not very prominent.
Fair enough.
Because
I guess I'm hungry enough to look for it. But no, I see what you're saying. For McDonald, You finish up on 9 up par 3, and then that loop takes you to 10T immediately. So there's no, unless you're starving or really thirsty, there's no, you're not driving by the clubhouse. There's no reason to go up there. So you can just head to 10T.
And if you're walking and there's a deep line, you're going to find yourself with people cutting in on you.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't flow.
Yeah. When you mentioned the subscription model, we want to get them in and take their money. That's a very aggressive way to put it, but we got to provide a service that makes them want to spend money there. So I agree with you. I think it's you're mentioning that they are not in the pro shop right now, correct? They are handling everything out of the concession area.
Correct.
Okay. So I don't know how that gets changed, but I think that should be
They
changed
put in
tomorrow.
a request for it 3
Okay.
months ago.
Okay.
And as I said, as far as the concession on how to handle it, the pros literally have to submit.
Mhm.
If they want to buy a different candy bar where they get a request,
Yeah.
they have to submit basically a business plan.
And that's why we're hamstrung right now in this current model, because we've got contracts that I don't know about. They can sell Pepsi but not Coke, or vice versa, whatever it may be. And some of that, you'll see some efficiencies, whether they get it from Cisco or whatever. But that is the exact reason why we need to look at a different model.
But in the meantime, why don't we just give the pros the authority? I mean, the one thing, having managed a company with, we were up to about 9 offices, you have to delegate responsibility, but authority. And you can hold people responsible for their decisions, but you have to allow them to make decisions.
Yeah.
And unless, the closer you are, it's like government, the closer you are to the people who are getting the services, the more likely you are that it's going to be well run.
I agree. So I guess my question would be, in particular to Mac Park, moving back over into the pro shop with pro shop services, so you can come in, pay your fee or your cart fee or whatever it may be. Why doesn't Keith just do that?
Because he needs permission.
Well, I think what will happen when we get to this golf professionals wish list, we've gone down through there and Mr. Hoffman has tried to address some of that. Like this question here, add more hot food operations to the snack bar. He said approved, make it happen. And so that puts it back on the pro. So when we do this wish list here today, maybe some of those questions that you have might get answered.
And we've got, I think we got a couple of the pros.
Yeah.
I'd like to get them to throw in their 2 cents while we have
So
them.
we plan on going through that list here in a little bit.
Okay, and at that time, I'd sure like to get their input.
Yeah.
Perfect. Any more questions for Mark on the?
I got a good question, if I may. This is Cam. You mentioned the cart fees and there being some potential there. I agree, but I would want to have a little bit of data to support which direction that you would take in reference to, out of those that have a subscription, what percentage of those walk already? So if you're already seeing an increase, or if there's already walking and you increase that cart fee, they're definitely not going to get the cart then. I would just say just some data to support that decision would be great, that we could see. And then as far as concession, I don't have a lot of experience in the food industry, to be honest. When I think about concession, it's like, how do you get more people to buy more food? Maybe specials during peak temperatures. If you're playing and when it's super hot, when most people don't want to play, you give them a special on water or something. Or later in the evening, there's a special on certain foods on certain days. I don't know. I don't see that happening now. Maybe that's something that we could entertain. Haven't really thought much of this, something that just kind of popped up right now as we were talking, but figured I'd throw that in there.
One thing to add, we actually passed a proposal to increase the fees on the memberships and increase the guard fees about 20 months ago. And when we tried to resurrect it about 3 months ago, nobody can even find the motion. So that's a little frustrating because at the very beginning, the way we set the membership numbers is, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you were the one that actually that did all of the mathematical. We tried to get as close as we could to the past system that they had, even though it was inefficient, while allowing us to have the advantage of money coming in during the winter months. However, we all talked about at the time that the rate was probably artificially low, and that we were going to come back and look at raising on some type of a schedule, not a big hit all of a sudden, but in addition to the $2.98, whatever we increase it, so that we're not running people off, but at the same time, you're getting closer to the value of what you have. And as I said, because of the system that we have, none of that ended up getting done, even though we passed the first one and then we brought it back up again in this committee 2 or 3 times. And it never got to council, and it never got, my understanding is, never got past the park board.
I don't even know.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
It's
So,
been so long.
I calculated
I'll
just-
go look for that.
Yeah,
I calculated that even if it was a small increase, during that period of time, we were talking $500,000.
well, I mean, we would have to look at that. I have no idea what you're referring to. I don't know what small increase means.
Oh, I was
That's
thinking $10, I think it,
$10 a month.
a month for all the different memberships. And I
recall
just,
that conversation.
and I just pulled that number out of the air.
Do-
I sent a memo out
Okay.
where I laid all that out. At any rate, my whole thing is, going back to what I said before, is decentralize it. I mean, if we don't end up hiring somebody, I really think that that we ought to be listening to the pros more.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think we go through too many pit stops sometimes, a lot of times in government, for that matter. But I guess it's the checks and balance system that we operate under. But I completely agree with you, Richard, that something like Mac Park being able to move back over into their pro shop station shouldn't have to go through a business plan and take 3 months to do it. He should be the one. He's the one there every day. He sees it. He sees the issues and the problems, and he should be able to move that over there. And whatever resources that they need over there, we should be able to accommodate pretty quickly.
And just to find, when I first came on the board, which is many years ago, the committee, the biggest complaint was everything stops at City Hall. That's still the biggest complaint. And so, as I said before, is no matter what, the business model needs to change so that it stops, the buck stops where the person is making the decision, and then you hold them accountable. My conversation with the pros is they'd love to be held accountable, because right now they're working their tails off, and they don't get a chance to actually have the input to anytime that you're involved. Anybody who's involved in something wants to make sure that they have some input, so some of their own knowledge and personality reflects in the job, so they can get credit for doing a good job.
Yep. Okay. Absolutely.
Can I make a comment on that? I think the word you're looking for is ownership. Ownership at the pro shop level. And I come from the private world, not the public world. First time I've ever sat in City Hall. So a lot of these things to me come off as common sense, and maybe that's not always the case, but I think it's interesting to note, at least, and there's been people that aren't in this room who have said something along these lines, that we are exploring an option that allows an outside entity, which I think is a good thing, obviously, to hear feedback, to evaluate, and ultimately make a decision, but allows an outside entity to manage all 4 courses, each course individually, in the manner they best see fit. And I think what Richard's saying that I agree with is we don't allow ourselves to do that. So we're putting an option out there that lets somebody else do it, which is great, and we can learn a lot, and maybe it becomes the best route that we go. But we've never taken an inside look and said, well, what if we handle it in a business-like manner ourselves? And I know Keith and I know Colin, and I play golf at these places, and each place is individualized. It has its own feel. You can go to all 4 of them, and they're all different, but we run them. It's not a franchise. We're not trying to make the same chicken sandwich at each golf course. They have their own feel. They're different. And I think, I agree with Richard's point about, the pros have never had the ammo to make decisions that best interest the place they're spending the most time at. And I've always thought that's a shame. That's why I was on board with the RFP for an outside source, because we were letting them do that. We were letting them look at the market and determine what's valuable to the consumer. But I think it's valuable to note, and a little bit trivial, that we don't do that for ourselves. So,
Mark, you mentioned, we're getting really good foot traffic at all 4 golf courses, but they're not spending money like we would like. So do we look at like a per head? I'm sure we do. And do you have that number?
That's how I look at it, just ultra simplistically. It's about $27 around what you're generating.
Okay.
Which to me, you should be in the 30s.
Okay. So
$3 around on 150,000 rounds is $450,000. Right?
So if we, and this is just for general knowledge, and I think for a little bit of the selection committee, whoever gets picked for that as we go through the process here, do you believe if we looked at a business-like approach at all 4 golf courses that we could get into the 30s?
I think we could. I mean, we looked at pure courses. Again, my view is very superficial. I'm not a golf expert. I don't know anything like your pros do. I look at numbers, and I can tell you that a lot of our peers generate a lot more concession per round than we do. Now, maybe they have better facilities than we do. I mean, there's a lot of variables, but again, just from a cold hard number standpoint, I can tell you our revenue generated per round is not what some of our peers generate. So that tells me we're missing out.
I like that view, because we see it as common sense a little bit.
And what I think is interesting in the scope of numbers is not just dollars per round. I think if you compared that to the places you just mentioned that are peers of ours that do higher, I think to peel the onion back on the problem, the interesting thing to me would be minutes spent outside of the minutes on the golf course. And I guarantee you that translates to a higher number in per head revenue, because the more time you spend, the more chances you have to grab money. And I can promise you, if you walk into Mac Park right now, and if the old pro shop was still where it used to be, there's 15 tables with 45 chairs at them and maybe 1 person sitting in them. And all those places that have a per head revenue of 30 something per person, I would be willing to make a wager that it's not the case when you walk into that area. So I think the numbers open the door to some very interesting questions around, we're not going to get people in the door with a $2 deal on 3 bags of chips. That's not why they're going. But they might buy 3 bags of chips if they're at the place for 30 minutes longer than they are right now. So it opens the door to at least some interesting conversations.
Okay, anything else? If not, we can go on to the finance report with Emma.
Thanks for having me. Good luck, guys.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Good luck
By the way-
downstairs.
I'm ready to.
By the way, I think this guy is absolutely phenomenal.
Well, don't let him hear you say that. Thanks, Mark.
One of the driving forces, I wanted to jump in there, one of the driving forces on some of the decision-making of how the golf clubs are operating, the staffing level is way down. To do more things, you gotta have more staff.
Yeah.
And they got us cut back to the Matt's ask.
Yeah.
On staffing. So if we want to do more stuff, we're gonna have to staff it at the level to get it done.
But you know, on that point, out at Auburn Hills, we had, Shanna.
Mhm.
She booked one heck of a lot of weddings out there. They moved her downtown, they split up her, even though I think she's still 100% paid by golf. She has other duties. She no longer books all the weddings.
Right.
Weddings just went off the chart. And I think if you looked at the revenue that we got on the weddings, we got a lot of money. So,
Gotta have the person there to do that.
but she was taken away and her duties split with other responsibilities, so she couldn't do it.
Not
So-
only, not only that, I apologize. Not only that, but even if she sells X amount of weddings, to my understanding, all of that money is split between the fund and allocated evenly between the 4 courses, correct?
I don't know that.
So that's my whole thing too, and I think the pros probably attest to this is like, yeah, if Mac Park kills it, or if Sim Park kills it and they're performing at a 4x anybody else, they don't get the reallocation of that 4x in revenue to make the decisions for the new staffing that they actually need. They're still bound by the greater system and what it limits them to. So they're kind of handcuffed again, like, okay, again, lack of ownership. Why would they try to boost their top line number when they know on the back end, really, it's just more work? Whereas from a private standpoint, you go, well, more revenue, more work, I can hire more people.
Yeah.
And then guess what? Now we're more efficient and we do even better than we did before. But again, that's
What he said, I mean, I agree with him, but not in as deep a voice.
Love it.
So the financial updates has a little more detail than what Mark has, so to help us understand where things are at. We don't have July number yet because July is closing today, so if you want, I can send it out next week. But as of half point, June 30th, the revenues are listed. We had about 2.2 in revenue for all courses. And everything's listed. As you can see, Alma is doing really, really well. Scott is on call right now. Alma was asking about it because he's hosting a lot of tournaments. Apparently, it was bringing a lot of good revenue. So that's really, I don't think the same as 19, because 19, Alma was not the first upper runner or the first place. I think it was Tax was always the first place. And as you can see, Tax is still pretty close second place. We have Sim, we have Mac. So for the next slide, it's going to be expenses. And for expense, it makes sense Auburn spend the most because they make the most money. And then there is Sim, there is Tax, and Tax is doing really well considering how much revenue they're bringing in and how much they're spending. And Mac is coming in third place, I think, roughly. So Mac overall revenue is not as good as the rest of the courses, but overall we're sitting at $1.7 million on expenses, and that gives us about $441,000 in net revenue as of June 30th. Again, so people keep asking about golf admin expenses and what it's about, especially the fact we are short in staff. So as you can tell, 13% is payroll and benefits and 37% is contractual. That's pretty standard every year. 49% is commodity, and people were asking questions where it's from. 117 is from city admin charge, and then 41 is from public safety fees. And that's about right, just because we pay $230 every year for city admin charge and 82 or 83 for public safety fees. So by the half year mark, that's where we're sitting at. I think people were asking about what public safety fees were with Park Board. It's mostly building maintenance and just maintenance fees to keep the street whatnot. The fees are not charged to recreational park maintenance because it's under general funds. It just allocated, it makes no sense for us to move funds around. It is just all in the same pot. But because golf is enterprise, city is charging them for any services they're using us. So that's why they're charging us. And then the next slide, I think someone asked about year-to-year comparison. I did have a percentage good idea, but I put in numbers in here as well so you can see. As Mark mentioned, 2020 was a really good year overall compared to 19 because we were in the black. I think it was 450. That's where the number was sitting at. And 19 was deficit. But because the second quarter was all COVID happened and the courses were shut down for 4 to 6 weeks, depends on the course. That's when revenue went down the second quarter, and that's when it's supposed to be the time of bringing revenue because weather started getting nice in March. But for 2021, I think it's good compared to 2019. We're almost $500,000, more in surpass 19 at that point. And it's going to be going really well for the rest of the year. Should be if weather allows and the people to play golf more outdoors. But one thing to consider I want to point out is, for one, winter is going to start roughly November and December. It could be wrong, but it sounds like people don't play golf when it's cold. So December, they might take a hit on that. And the other thing to keep in mind is, yes, we're doing well this year, but we're really understaffed. So the manager is vacant, the manager position is vacant, and then some maintenance positions are vacant, and same with the clerk position. So you can't really thinking this is sustainable, right? Because you have to hire people and you expect more in the future. So this is not a standard expectation to think it's going to be in next year or have more fully staffed team. So that we have to keep in mind. The next slide, Troy wants to mention about some project updates. For the golf course improvement, we met with all the main school and they came up with the list that's in dire need for improvement. And overall, we're planning on spending $350 roughly. And that comes from last year's revenue. So we're planning on spending that on golf course improvement. And we're planning on spending $140 to $199, $141 to $199 on equipment replacement for those courses as well. And that comes from part of revenue. And we're planning on doing all this equipment this year for sure.
I have, and this probably would be directed to you and Mark. The decision to shut down for COVID just absolutely knocked our socks off. I mean, when everybody else around us was open, I mean, but the bottom line is we suffered quite a bit. My understanding of the funds are that one of them is to put back into place what was lost, and you have to justify it. Are we getting any of that money?
I can't answer that one. You'd have to ask that to Troy. I don't have the information on that.
Because we really should. And I think the case is easily made that based upon just what we did the period of time after that, you just plug those numbers in, because as a matter of fact, we would have done more.
I think what the thinking was there, that the city has to err on the side of safety, and then
yeah, but
it was realized afterward, hindsight's 2020. So
okay.
It was realized that, yeah, people are getting out. They're still going to go play. They're going to go play even more. And yeah, it was a tough decision and we missed out.
Okay, to put it in context, I wrote a memo. I had talked to Dr. Menace. He said the policy was unnecessary. I asked that we have a meeting. He offered to Zoom in. It was turned down.
Richard, I think been over this
Okay,
a
but,
1,000 times since last
but we
March.
should get the money. That's what I'm saying.
Fair.
They get, it is specifically earmarked to put the government and its agencies back into the place for where it was lost money. That was lost money. We should be getting our share of that.
Where at? Where from?
The
ARPA.
yeah, the ARPA. That's what it's designated for. And now they're trying to figure out where they're going to spend it, where a lot of times they're trying to figure out how they tie it. We can tie it specifically. That decision cost us money, and it should be reimbursed.
Yeah, I don't
We'll
know.
share that with Mr. Outman.
Any other questions for Emma? Emma, I will say, you're right on, with the cold weather. Golfers don't like to play out there. It depends on how tough you are. I mean,
Yeah.
Richard's out there every day. It doesn't matter if it's -5 out. So,
And you can't tell from year to year. I mean, sometimes we have great winters, and sometimes, and we're due for a great one. But beside the point, that the question is, if we can get that some of those changes in the structure, we can still make money the rest of the year. So we need to do whatever we need to do, because it was anticipated, it was planned, never happened, needs to happen now. Because you're right, I mean, that would be the increases in the adjustment for the membership fee and adjustment for the cards.
yeah, go for it. Won't keep you around any longer. Thank you, Emma. All right, vacant positions.
Well, I can fill you in, we have finally gotten permission to, because we were put on a hiring freeze, and golf was put on a hiring freeze as well. And so we've been given permission to fill, and those guys, Scott and Steve could probably fill you in better than I can. I'm just coming in at the last minute here to fill in, but we've been approved to fill some positions, and they are posted, they are out there. We're working on doing interviews. I run the park maintenance. I had 40 vacancies. I'm allowed to fill 25 of them, so that still doesn't get me back to where I need to be to do the job that I'm hired to do. But golf has been approved to fill some of those positions. I know they desperately need them. They got to fill some part-time positions as well to get the concessions going, to get the cart guys going and that kind of stuff. Steve or Scott maybe could answer that better than I can, but I do know we have been approved, and Grant West has announced that he's retiring from Zen. So we're going to be losing one more guy to everything. So that would be a tough position to fill in. So we're working on what Shanna and Troy shared with me. We're working on filling positions as fast as we can.
Okay. Steve or Scott, do you guys have anything to add on to that?
No, that sounds pretty correct. We were able to fill seasonal staffing fairly successfully. We're losing a bunch of college kids now, so we're in the process of trying to hire for fall. But yeah, we do have seasonal positions opened up, which has been nice.
By the way, Steve, played your course today. It's in great shape.
Yeah, it's really nice right now.
Scott, I think you're still muted if you're trying to chime in.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got junior league last match, got snag golf tonight and junior golf, or ladies golf, so I kind of stepped away, so I didn't know exactly what you were talking about as far as staffing levels. But kind of to follow up on Steve, I mean, I've had just a complete decimation of my staff. I go to one virtually one person in the snack bar to run it. I mean, I lost 5 of them as of last week and today. So we're struggling, and our event business hasn't gone away. We got 3 events next week, and we got a full slate for September and October. But as Steve and everybody else will tell you, the hiring process and the time constraints getting people hired is just a struggle. And to be honest, I don't know how we're going to achieve what we're going to achieve here at Auburn Hills with the limited staff that we got in the food and beverage and the golf shop. So it's a never-ending struggle.
The city's process is really slow when it comes to, getting the names to interview and then to finalize them, and then to go to the next step, and then get the interviews, and then to make the offers, and then to do the drug test and the physical. We're talking 3 weeks probably.
Yeah,
if not
it's
more,
been a
sometimes.
challenge.
It is a huge challenge.
Who's running the, I'm gonna call it headhunting right now? Is it up here in this department?
Well,
No, HR does.
HR does.
HR uses their system to put, to put all of our positions out there on the city's website.
Okay.
I mean, the one struggle that we're having is, while we increased our pay to $8.90, people aren't looking for $8.90 an hour jobs. You can go to McDonald's and you can make 11, and we're actually making them work for $8.90. And the quality of applicants, or the applicants that we're getting, and Steve's probably in the same boat, they're all high school kids. Well, they have to be 18 or 21 years old to serve beer. And we're not getting those applicants because people aren't willing to work for $8.90 an hour. And that's going to be our struggle from here forward.
Can we raise that?
They did raise it to $8.90 from $8.43, and we were told they ought to be thankful because minimum wage is $7.50.
When it comes to my side of things, which is not the enterprise side of things, I have a range of worker ones, worker twos, and I've got them right about $9 an hour is where I'm starting my folks, which isn't much more than what Scott was talking about there. As far as the enterprise, I don't know how HR plays into that. If we have to go by the payroll standards that it's established, a worker one gets this much money, a worker two gets this much money. So I don't know how that plays into the golf side, but yeah, I'm limited as to how much I can hire part-time seasonal staff in. Full-time workers, that $15 an hour thing starting to come in on the full-time side of things. We're trying to make all of our offers at $15 or more right now, instead of having them come in at $14 or $13.90. Because Scott's exactly right. Nobody wants to work for those dollar amounts.
Yeah. I don't have it right in front of me, but I know Mark mentioned that's one of ARPA's initiatives, correct?
Right.
And maybe that's something to look into at the council level or
Yeah, it's a higher level of decision making.
Yeah. Clearly, if we're slammed like Scott just mentioned, we're going to need some help. I think that's why the ARPA money's there. So hopefully we can communicate that to our respective council members and whoever else needs to hear it. They listen to us and make good decisions. So.
I played out at Auburn the other night myself, and there was 2 people, one at the counter and one at the concession counter. They had 2 people and 1 golf guy or cart guy. 3 people running the whole golf course.
Yep. Okay. Any more questions on this? Okay. Round report not available yet. So we can move on to continuation of prior business, membership retention rate, price increase.
Can you go to those, that way everybody can see them at the same
let's
time?
see which one.
The Excel document down there, I think it.
Is it that one?
Yes. Now go to that retention tab. So I got a quick introduction to this the other day, and from what I can gather from it, it's showing new members on this line and what the increase that is. And then we also have a certain amount of people that have canceled out. You can see the month running. So we went from 763 total members to 1,400, which is a pretty good increase. Now the challenge is, how do we keep those guys from month to month, year to year? Membership retention, you guys can see it there. I don't know, I can't answer a lot of questions how this information was gathered, but I think it's pretty straightforward. However many people signed up for the month and however many people left the program. And we've had a significant increase. So maybe that whole new membership thing and getting rid of that nuisance fee. Yeah, I call it nuisance fee. I don't know what that's what it's called, but maybe that's helping.
Well, no, I think it clearly did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
If we can make the correct adjustments, and again, that's a fine line on the retention. Because if you raise it too fast and too high, you lose them. But I mean, quite frankly, $57 or whatever it is, and 18 cents for a senior is just ridiculously low.
So go to that next
without a card.
That next one. So what Shannon put together was, okay, what if we had those same monthly fees and we did a 5% increase on the senior membership? You got adult membership, you got couples, you got young adult. So here is an example of if we did increases to just the membership, and which isn't your daily round, you would end up somewhere on here. You could end up to $100,000 collected. No, that's July. There's a page. Is there a way to open that? Because there's a number that adds. If you get to a 15% increase, it increases the memberships by $100,000. You want, like you're talking about, you want to creep that in. So
yeah.
So this is the line membership revenues. You can see how much money is generated just for 1 month in memberships there. And you can see what the monthly fee is right now.
Is the adult membership 40 to 60? Ages 40 to 60?
Oh, I don't know that.
Okay.
62, I think.
I think it's 62. Yeah.
Which reminds me, I've had a lot of people who hit their 62nd birthday and they call down here to try to get it changed and never get a call back. And so I don't know that, and the courses tell them they have to call downtown, and apparently there's nobody in charge of that, or at least nobody.
We haven't had a receptionist because that position got cut and we haven't got to fill it. So it's Penny and Lisa. We have 2 people doing the job of about 4 people, but we're really good at making return calls. I've worked with Penny and I've worked with Lisa.
Yeah.
We return phone calls. So
one of them is
Judge
Joe Kisner. I'll give you his phone number afterwards.
I'll be glad to call.
He told me he made 3 calls.
Because people tell us that about our forestry, and I guarantee you we return phone calls.
Okay. As I said, and he can tell you the date and time and.
Hook me up on that. I'll follow up with them. All right.
Great.
So then there's some CIP in here, which was already talked about. You know, those mowers that was showing up in Emma's report, they are getting purchased. They're in the process of getting taken care of. The other CIP stuff, of course, is the repairs at McDonald, the ponds. I've been involved in that. The engineering is working on getting an on-call engineer to do some design work so that we can get some bid specifications so we can get it bidded out. But we need those bid specifications. We have, what, $250,000 to work with to do that. And so that is moving forward. I know the roof out at Tex is moving forward. I think there's one of our forms here that shows what's been completed, that some air conditioning work has been done. But these mowers they've gotten a fleet and they're working on getting those purchased. Yeah, hit that completed. So that's some CIP stuff that's been completed. You can see auditor, roof repair, air conditioning repair, irrigation repairs, that all has been implemented and got started. That's about all I can tell you on it. So the next thing Mr. Outman wanted us to review was that wish list. Can you find that and pull that up? Do we have that? We have copies. We have hard copies in front of us. And this is where Scott and Steve probably can help out more. So what I see from this document is that each one of the pros were to submit things that they would like to see happen. And then Mr. Houtman was going to assess what can happen, what's being considered, and what's not possible. So some of those things, Richard, you were talking about, show up on some of these lists, you know. 'Cause we all want to do a better job. So I don't know if you want to go through this line by line, Eddie, or if you guys just want to read down through it.
What does the X mean?
What's that?
What does the X on here mean? Is that not possible, or is that?
No, that would be approved. So like what Troy was showing me.
So not possibles are just, they're blank.
Right.
Okay.
So like here, add a suggestion box. Do it. Yeah, it's approved. Make it happen.
I just wasn't sure if the X's meant no or yes.
Yeah, those are approved to do.
Excellent.
So they're in the process of hiring super seasonals, which can work all year long, but won't gain any benefits. Interim can act as a third-party vendor and work with contractors, golf professionals, complete orders, starting offering club repairs and that kind of stuff. Figure out a way to carry Coke products. That can't happen because we're in a contract with Pepsi until that ends. Once it ends, then we'll resubmit and take new bids.
Just out of curiosity, 25,000, does that go? My understanding, at one point I was told that what we get is a variety of things, including things that we can't even use. Like they'll give us, 100 bottles of water, but they're the small bottles.
Yeah.
And that we really can't sell them, and
Right.
so
I used to be on the recreation side of things, and we used to get $50,000 that we could spend on whatever we wanted to, and then they would supply us product for all of our events. That has been cut down considerably. I think they only get 25,000 and a little bit of product now to be used where we want to use it.
That sounds like a contractual negotiation. Yeah, I mean, they're probably giving us whatever's left over from the year prior.
right.
That's sitting in their warehouse. The $25,000 rebate, I would assume is just, we can kick that back at the end of the year on.
The only question that I would have, and I don't know anything about soft drink sales, but is the 25,000, do we have to do an exclusive? And would we make more money if we could offer both versus that 25,000? I mean, I don't know if the pros.
I know when I helped negotiate this for the recreation side of things, they weren't willing to, it's either one or
One
or none.
One or the other.
One or the other. They wouldn't
That
share.
makes sense from Pepsi's side.
So like this one right here, getting Wi-Fi hooked up at all the golf courses. I'm trying to get Wi-Fi down at park maintenance and forestry. The initial cost is $15,000. And then there's two different plans. There's one plan that is better, but then I will have an $89 a month, monthly charge. But it's just $15,000 just to get 2 buildings hooked up with Wi-Fi. So the cost, I think, is the issue on the Wi-Fi at golf courses. You know, so, and then you can roll that up to see if there's different questions from the different golfers. There's Auburn Hills. Scott could probably answer. Scott, can you see that?
Yes.
Is there any items you want to talk about there? Because you can see what Troy has approved and what is still being considered and what's not possible. Purchasing new beverage carts, we're saying not possible because there's no funding for it.
Correct.
It'd be a great idea. It's probably well needed and a great idea.
Well, it's just like everything else, David. I mean, these vehicles that we have are 20 years old, and
Yeah.
they don't run. I mean, I actually borrowed one from Steve, and I'm still using it because on event days when we need 2 to 3 beverage carts, I can only provide 2, and it's about touch points.
And
As
again,
Richard alluded to earlier, when you have an event out there, you want to have touch points and you want to get more cash out of your customers or your members. It's on the golf course.
And you want to look good doing it. You know, you want a nice looking cart.
and if we can get some art money, this would be putting it into areas that will create more money, which is what the government likes to see. They wanted to replace, put you back where you were, but also to make sure that the money actually will be used in order to fund your organization in the future. And this, how do we, you will talk to Mr. Hartman about the art money?
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a note for him.
Okay.
Has this
So, like,
been
you're-
shared with, sorry, has this been shared with the budget committee? This particular,
Which budget committee is that?
the wish list, what they're doing downstairs right now? or the
I don't
6:30?
think so. I think this is, he just completed this the other day and now sharing it with you
Okay.
guys. So no, I don't think it's been shared with finance or.
But we've had these wish list items for 3 months now, at least. So has it been in Troy's hands? How many people have seen this, I guess? Has the manager seen
I can't
this?
tell you if
Okay.
the staff have seen it.
Okay.
They had to create the.
Well, yeah. I'm just wondering if, when we talk about ARPA money and budgeting and proposed 2022 and 2023 operating budget, I hope that this was brought up, and this particular case at Auburn Hills, purchase new beverage carts. I hope that's been relayed to somebody that can make that decision.
On my side of things, anything that's a significant purchase or an idea, I have to present it in the form of a program option at the budget time.
Mhm.
So I don't know about golf, if golf has to do that same process. So I'm not, like, if I want to purchase a new item, a new vehicle or something like that, I have to create a program option. Or like right now, we need a new refuse truck. We need a third refuse truck, and Mark mentioned it. It was denied, but they gave me $50,000 to maybe contract out some stuff. Well, the truck's $250,000. I need 2 people to run it. It was a $500,000 program option. It never got approved. So, like, some of these things could be set up as program options because some of them are expensive, like remodeling the building. It's somewhere it says
Well,
need
that
to
should
get
fall under
estimates and specifications.
Yeah, that should fall under infrastructure, I would imagine. So, but yeah,
For golf, doesn't it? If you guys have, if we have, I keep saying you guys, us, me, Park. If we have $800,000 left over at the end of the year, we get to decide how to spend it, right?
Mhm.
So these purchases would come out of that,
Yeah.
of the saving. Public, the city's probably not going to fund that. That would be subsidizing it, you know. And it's, so anyway, Troy wanted to point out that he agrees with a lot of things that are on here. There's some things that are being considered and then there's not possible. at this point in time.
But as I said, I think that we can get some money and if they have extra money that, as I said, I just worked for the government for 21, federal government, 21 years, and I know how they fund, and we would be perfect candidates, absolutely perfect. Very rarely can government show that it lost, and we can show without a doubt.
I submitted, and I don't know, I should be sharing all this, I submitted 6 program options for, I think they all come to $2 million. Matter of fact, no, it was 10 million because one of my program options was to repair every parking lot, put new lighting, put new asphalt at every parking lot in every one of our parks. There's 129 parking lots that desperately needs work. It was a huge number, but if you don't ask, at some point you're never gonna get it. And
Well, maybe we just change their name to Top Golf and we'll get plenty of money.
yeah.
Don't go there, Richard. Not today, sir.
Is that
Yeah.
satisfied what we're needing to do with this?
I would like
Yeah,
to
let's
take
get-
this list though and
Look it
discuss
over.
it with the relationship to ARPA fund.
Yeah, I agree. Let's continue to go down this list, though. We covered Sim and Auburn, so let's continue on MAC, and I know Keith's not on, but Tex certainly. Okay, Tex looks like it's all been approved.
So yes, that bi-weekly meeting, it's just a matter of getting them scheduled and making them happen, you know? Update restrooms, furniture, we need to get estimates and specifications of what to do there. Improvements to the golf course, yes, we need to do that. Is it approved money-wise? And we have all the specifications and stuff? No, but Troy's in agreement that it needs to happen.
So on the second line item here, hiring more people at 850 doesn't solve the employee issues, and his response was every employee that has been with the city of Wichita for a year is eligible for an annual raise. Well, that might be good for retention in some capacity, but it's not attracting the talent that we need. I think that was the issue that was trying to be addressed. Again, it goes back to hiring people in the ARPA. I don't have that in front of me. I don't know how much they allocated. I know I just looked at it 30 minutes ago, 45 minutes ago, whatever it was, but so hopefully that can be addressed downstairs. Let's see, let's turn over to Mac here. Currently not budgeted, hire an assistant professional. Currently not budgeted, lease golf cart fleet, new carts every 4 years, that would be nice. I know some of the private courses would like to do that. Okay. No carts allowed in parking lots, that, I've never agreed with that.
No, that's one of the,
If we're worried about them sneaking on like 2 cans of Pepsi out of their trunk or whatever it may be, then, you know, if somebody comes out and stops me, because I'm putting my bag in my trunk, and I'm a young, fairly athletic guy, and I don't want to walk 30 spaces down. I want to take my cart out there and throw my bag in, take it back.
Right.
That's how you're supposed to do it.
Well, and the bottom line is, there are people like me who can't do it.
Right.
And then the other thing is, we've got to be consumer friendly.
Absolutely. Customer is always right. So, yeah. Eliminate contracts with outside companies for services, plumbing, electrical. Yeah, that's at the finance department level. But I would assume, negotiate every year, or every 3 years, or 5 years.
Usually I think it's every 3 years on like electrical, HVAC, that kind of stuff, engineering. And so they're kept around for a while.
That makes sense. Okay. Is there anything else on the wish list that you guys want to address?
No, I mean, from the standpoint, there's some things on here that aren't on here that I'd love to see.
Sure.
I mean, the bridge at McDonald, where you have to, there's traffic going both ways on a single bridge that wasn't meant to, you have, I'm sorry, sand at Auburn Hills. There's a number of holes where you're hitting right down into the, what's that protective covering called?
The protective covering where at?
Auburn, where you have the, for the weed control.
Like the tarping,
The
plastic.
tarping, you're hitting right into it. There's no sand. And
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Underneath the sand, the tarp underneath the sand. Okay.
the sand, and so there's a number of holes where sand at most of our courses. I mean, I played out at Tex today, and it was so amazing to hit out of sand in their sand traps because it was beautiful.
Yeah. Sand is tough. You got to get the right, first of all, the right grain, and then the right amount that you pour in. You don't want guys sinking down into it. You don't want it too thin. So, yeah, that's a tough one. But I want to kick it to Steve and Scott here, just on the wish list. Do you guys feel like you've been heard? I want you guys to be as honest as possible. Do you guys feel like you've been heard with this wish list?
I do. I definitely feel like they took our input and feel like there's some improvements being made. It's never as quick as we want it. A lot of it has to do with proper staffing and having the ability to offer more things to our golfers to keep them coming back. Some of the stuff like Mr. Manning was talking about, trying to get our rate per round up in the 30s. I mean, small things like card increases, which has been talked about. Our green fees haven't gone up for years. Some of those things, range balls increases, things like that, even if they were just incremental, would make a huge difference to our bottom line. And I have some friends that are PGA professionals at area courses, and since we have 4 courses, we dictate a lot of the fees in Wichita, and they finally had to just go way above us because cost of everything has gone up, and we kind of seem to be falling behind with keeping our rates competitive enough to make money.
Yeah. Scott, I know you got Stag Night going on, or is it Snag? Do you say Stag or Snag?
He's on mute.
I love technology. We can't hear you, Scott. Not sure what's going on.
That's usually a sign of the mute button's on.
You know, I've got an interesting observation. I just came back from a golf trip. We went on a 5-day golf trip over in Branson, and we played 3 public courses, and then 2 of them were public-private. You know, the Springfield course that we played, the green fee was $45, and their course was in great shape, beautiful. Their clubhouses weren't much different than ours. But none of them were at that $32 range or whatever our green fees are at now. So they were 45, 55, and then we played the one really nice course. It was $115, and we got tons of customer service. The golf course was impeccable.
Yeah.
It was beautiful right there in the middle of Branson. Very fun, difficult course to play, but our golf is pretty cheap.
Branson is interesting. environment out there. I don't know if you've been, Michael or Richard, but you know, that entire drive, Branson to Lake of the Ozarks, they've got some premier golf courses out there. It's really just market driven.
Yep.
These guys are competing with, you know, what's Tiger's new course, Paynes Valley. And so if you're going out there on a guy's trip, it's either you're playing Paynes Valley or you're finding a $60 course that is
Thousand
a
Hills,
lot
yeah.
more.
Thousand Hills was nice.
Yeah.
It was about a $60 course.
Yeah. So it's all market driven out there, and I mean it reminds me a little bit of not necessarily like Bandon Dunes, but the amount of golf courses that are out there, the amount of options that you have. It's a little bit different. But yeah, that's good, guys. I appreciate the feedback. That's kind of why we wanted to create this wish list, and we appreciate you guys taking the time, and I hope you guys continue to feel heard, and maybe it's something we do once every quarter or once every 6 months or annually. I'm not sure, but you know, Steve, you bring up a couple of good points with range balls and other things like that. It's always almost like a moving target. We got to continue to you know, adapt and upgrade where we can and what makes sense to keep everyone happy. So certainly appreciate it. And Scott, I hope you're having fun out there at whatever you got going on.
I'm trying to get in.
I think
Scott,
it's
He's hitting that button harder and harder.
Scott, golf, stag night, and something else. So
Scott, have you tried toggling your mute button?
I can hear him. I think it's the microphone. Some sort of microphone issue. But, well, guys, that's all I've got.
Okay.
It looks like Cam's hopped off here, so we are.
Should we get these?
Yeah. So no president's update. If there's nothing else, we can adjourn. Great.
I came here for the president's update.
You want an update from me?
All that suspense.
I need a darn golf game.